Hello, and welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. My name is Maddie, Kendra Nielsen's COO, and today you'll be listening to episode 300, Can Spiritual Intelligence Save Your Marriage and Your Sanity as a Parent, Part 1, with Yosi Emran. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Yosi Amram. He has a PhD and is a licensed clinical psychologist, a CEO leadership coach, and a best-selling and award-winning author. He's a pioneer researcher in the field of spiritual intelligence, whose research has received over 1,000 citations. In addition to his work with individuals, Yosi is passionate about helping couples develop spiritually intelligent, conscious relationships that serve their psycho-spiritual healing and growth. I am very excited to have you on the show today, Yosi. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Kendra, for the kind words and the welcoming presence and smile. I'm happy to be here with you.
I was really excited looking through your bio, and this is something that we haven't spoken to specifically before. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic a little bit. I know we could go lots of directions with it, but before I do that, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself outside of what I've shared?
Sure. Let's see. I'll try and keep it contained. It's a bit of a long journey, as I'm sure many of us. But yeah, I was born and raised in Israel, a war-torn part of the world. Despite my leanings at age 18, I was drafted into 3 years of mandatory service. I was a shy, introverted, and math, science nerd. But to my surprise, I had the fastest promotion record of the history of my regiment and all these leadership awards. But while I excelled in the military, unfortunately, it was peaceful times, and not like it's been horrific in the last few years. But despite excelling in the military leadership hierarchy, that command and control model, which is effective and necessary in battle, kind of chafed at my soul. And what I got interested in is to build an organization that facilitate and support the growth of each individual, community, team, and environment. And that led to my aspiration to become an entrepreneur and someday build and start my own companies and do my own experiments of how to organize and lead people to bring out the best in them. So that led me to come to the US and ultimately become an entrepreneur. I started a company called Individual. It was the first company to do personal newspapers before the internet. You'd get Kendra's morning news on your fax machine. It was tailored to you. We had rudimentary self-learning agents that learned about your interests based on the stories you found relevant or not. It started out predating the internet on fax, and then the internet came, and I was burnt out working 70, 80 hours a week for a number of years. The internet was a big threat. I kind of went into clinical depression or a dark night of the soul, you might say, but I persisted, and eventually we turned the company around into an internet business. It was a high-flying stock. I took the company public. And while I was running around trying to capitalize on the internet opportunity, one day I was getting a deep tissue massage, trying to relax, and it took me into a deep state of relaxation that was a spiritual awakening. And I experienced the interconnectedness of everything and the non-separation of what we normally think of, that there's a me and my awareness, and then there's the object of my awareness, like my feet on the ground or my breath. I realize that all of that is really one, and there is this oneness that unifies all of us, but we live in this state of me here and you there, and the plant on my desk here and the trees outside, and we're all these separate objects. So that illusion kind of was shattered, but it also blew the circuits of my mind and threw me into a manic episode, which led to me, unfortunately, getting pushed out of the company, and it was a big trauma. But ultimately, it was a blessing in disguise that changed the direction of my life. I went back to school and got a PhD in transpersonal psychology and wanted to understand myself and what led to my identification with the business so much, and was this awakening real or delusional? And that led me to discover the term spiritual intelligence and research and define it and how to measure it. And so that's kind of what brings me to my interest in spiritual intelligence. It was this awakening experience and the knowledge of all the work done on emotional intelligence and all the research that showed people who have greater emotional intelligence are more resilient, more successful, better leaders, have better relationships, etc. So I thought spiritual intelligence would be a parallel, and that's kind of what leads us to here.
So, for listeners that don't know much about the difference between emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, kind of tell us what those things are and why you're interested in them.
So let's start with something more people are familiar with, which is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to draw on emotional information and resources to help manage emotions in ourselves and others. By analogy, spiritual intelligence is the ability to draw on spiritual resources and qualities that have been celebrated by all the world's spiritual traditions for thousands of years. These are things like purpose, service, trust, gratitude, joy, beauty, humility, compassion, forgiveness, higher self, intuition, presence. These are qualities that, in my interviews with 71 leaders and teachers across all the world's traditions, regardless of their cosmology and theology, whether they believe Jesus was the Messiah, Muhammad was the final prophet, the self is empty, like in Buddhism, Shiva Shakti, like in Hinduism or in Taoism. The yin and yang is the thing that arises everything, regardless of their theology and cosmology. They spoke about these qualities as virtues. This knowledge has been around humanity for thousands of years. Modern science in the field of positive psychology affirms that those same qualities that come through in my research of spiritual intelligence, over half of them map one-to-one what Marty Seligman and his colleagues in his character strengths inventory identified. So there's a convergence between ancient wisdom and modern science in positive psychology and in the science of spiritual intelligence that I've been engaged in. Many other researchers now across the world in different languages and cultures have shown that people that have higher spiritual intelligence lead better fulfilling life, more quality of life, satisfaction, more resilience, better mental health, they're even more productive, they produce better financial results for their organizations, and so on. Even when you control and account for emotional intelligence and personality and other factors that have already been demonstrated to be important.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you broke that down, that emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. And you're right, emotional intelligence is something that we're talking more about. I've seen a lot of books on it, I've read them, studied it. But spiritual intelligence, I haven't really heard that talked about much at all. So I was so excited to have you on to talk more about this, especially because there's so many belief systems. Like, how can we talk about this collectively and really understand each other? But you're saying that this increases fulfillment and joy in people's lives. And specifically, you even mentioned couples. Why should couples care about this? Why does this matter? Can you break that down a little bit?
Let me just say one more thing about
Yeah.
spiritual intelligence. For most people, spirituality is associated with religion, and there's been so much damage, woundedness, trauma, and violence been done in the name of religion. So I just want to distinguish between spiritual intelligence and religion, and that this is all scientifically based and consistent with logic and reason. It's not necessarily in contrast. Just like emotional intelligence, we used to think that there's a dichotomy between emotion and reason. If I say, hey, Kendra, do you know people in your life that are emotional? That's not necessarily the best compliment versus people in your life that are emotionally intelligent. So that kind of bridged the gap. Now we have a similar dichotomy between spiritual, which we think is woo-woo and non-practical, and the practical. Spiritual intelligence brings them together and says, no, there's a spiritual intelligence. You can draw on these resources and these qualities, and it's very practical and helps your well-being individually and collectively. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to drive that point. Let me pause there and then move to your question about relationships and why should we care as couples. I'm in the midst of doing a research right now with 100 couples looking at emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and attachment factors and seeing what explains relational satisfaction. I haven't finished the whole thing, but I will say we've had 50 same-sex couples complete the study and 30 heterosexual couples. I haven't analyzed all the data. I'm trying to get to 50 heterosexual couples. But so far, it seems that each of those factors, emotional intelligence, attachment, and spiritual intelligence, makes a unique contribution to relational satisfaction. That's very heartening. Depending on how you look at it and which population, spiritual intelligence makes as big or bigger contribution than these other factors. So, but they're all important and they're all complementary. So let's talk about relationships specifically, and then maybe we could talk about some case studies and kind of help ground this to tangible. How can this show up in a real relationship and what does that mean? So I talk about spiritually intelligent relationship or a conscious relationship. And, normally we're in relationship, we have human needs, basic human needs for companionship and seen and understood and supported emotionally and sexually. And all these are all important at the human level. But when we hold our relationship from a spiritually intelligent perspective, then what we're interested in is we have a shared intention as a couple in our psycho-spiritual healing and growth and the development of our spiritual intelligence capacities. At the most basic level, if we view the world as a dog-eat-dog world, the selfish gene approach to evolution, we're just here as random mutations of selfish genes. Basically, I'm looking at my interests and what can I get in relationships, to use the language of Martin Buber, would be an I-it. Everybody I encounter along the way is what can I get from them? Obviously, when we approach an intimate relationship from that perspective, it's not going to be very great. And then we move to another level, which would be more I thou, which is it's my subjectivity and your subjectivity, and we look for win-win. The model there would be the marketplace. I do this for you, you do this for me. It's transactional. And it's still for my own interest. It's the marketplace model of capitalism. I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back. And that's fine at some level. But then we move to another level and say, no, I'm beyond these basic needs. I am here to grow and evolve spiritually and expand my capacity for love and for healing. So have that shared intention with my partner, then the things that annoy me about you or your woundedness are triggering things in me. Instead of complaining and trying to change you, it's like, no, here's my opportunity to transcend and grow and develop more compassion for myself and you. Then I can use that as an opportunity to practice forgiveness, compassion, presence, and humility. So I start to relax my ego and I take myself more lightly. Instead of trying to be right, I try and do what is right. So then even the difficulties become an opportunity for our healing and growth. And then we're engaged in a sacred dance of love, which is love for myself, love for you as my partner, and ultimately love for the one and connection to the one, whatever language you want to use about what that is. But it's based on this understanding of our interconnectedness and interdependence.
Level 1 is like, what can I get from them? Level 2 is that transactional. And level 3 is more this transcendence, this forgiveness, doing what's right, having that humility, all of those spiritual qualities, like this higher level in that relationship. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I come to the relationship with that shared intention with my partner. And when we approach that relationship with that shared intention, that I'm not just here to meet my quote unquote basic human needs, I'm coming here to grow psychospiritually and heal myself and you, then every obstacle along the way is actually something that I'm grateful for because it's triggering me. And then I get to look at what in me needs healing, growth, how I need to open my heart into greater and greater love for myself and you and the totality.
So many people learn through stories, through examples. Do you have a personal story or a couple that you can think of that you've worked with that were able to achieve that? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, when you say achieve that, spiritual intelligence is not a once and done
Okay.
type of thing. It's not like you say, well, I want to get healthy. So I go to the gym for a week, I work out all my muscle groups, and now I'm healthy and I'm done. You keep working on it. If you want to be healthy, you don't just buy a book about good, healthy food recipes. You got to keep at it and you keep eating healthy. So it's an ongoing practice. And I think we have limitless potential as human beings to grow and evolve, which makes it exciting. Let me tell you a story of a couple. So this is a couple. I'll call them Mike and Nancy. They're married. They have two young kids, a dog. Nancy is a stay-at-home mom caring for the two young children. And Mike is working high tech, working intensely, providing for the family. As happens in many couples, one of them is messy, Mike is messy, and Nancy is neat. They have arguments in front of me. Nancy's like, why do I have to pick up your underwear and socks in the bedroom? I'm busy cleaning and taking care of the kids and the dog, and the house is a mess, etc. Why do I have to do that? And Mike obviously counters, you don't have to, you choose to. You're a neatness freak. And I have my own things to worry about with work and I'm busy, etc. So they get into these arguments and pointing fingers, which happens in many couples, and then they get dysregulated. If I ask Mike, what's going on with Nancy, what is she saying? When we're dysregulated, it just goes in one ear, goes out the other. It's just like we can't hear, we can't respond. Similarly with her, they get so dysregulated. First, you got to bring people into a state of self-regulation. I interrupt and say, okay, both of you seem frustrated, upset right now. I have to bring in my nervous system and my empathy to see them and name the situation. Then they slow down from that point, say, okay, you're frustrated, right? Yeah, I am. And she's frustrated and upset, and he's frustrated and upset. First is to practice one of the spiritual intelligence capacities, self-compassion, because that is self-regulating. I guide them and say, okay, put your right hand flat on your chest, left hand on it, and substitute your own name like Mike or Nancy. This disagreement is really frustrating and difficult and painful. So we want to acknowledge our frustration, our difficulty, our pain. Secondly, we want to normalize it. We're not the only couple. Many couples experience similar difficulties. And then the third component of self-compassion is commitment to not abandon ourselves. I'm here with you, we say to ourselves, Mike, I'm here with you and we'll go through this together. They're talking to themselves, acknowledging their own suffering, their own frustration, number one. Two, they're normalizing their experience. This is something that many couples experience. And three, I'm here with myself and I'm going to not abandon myself. We think in relationship, we go beyond selfish needs, but we still need to love ourselves, assert our truth. So that's otherwise it's bypass and we build resentment. So first we acknowledge and normalize and commit to ourselves that we are with ourselves. And as we do that, we connect with ourselves, then we start to self-regulate. And then, you could see their mood on their face. It starts to lighten up. And then they could see and look at each other. And then they realize that they're suffering and their partner is suffering. And then you go to the next level of compassion, which for many people seems counterintuitive. In Buddhism, there's this practice called Tonglen, which means giving and receiving. So in this practice, we actually inhale other people's suffering into this, has this magical alchemical capacity, and they exhale out compassion and kindness. Most people are like, I got enough of my own suffering. Why would I want to inhale anybody else's suffering or my partner who's annoying the heck out of me? So what I invite them to do is to imagine themselves sitting next to their partner, and then with their eyes closed, draw in on the inhale. On the inhale, they imagine their own and their partner's suffering as dark smoke. Breathing in, I draw in my suffering, and we pause for a second in the heart. And then breathing out, I exhale compassion and kindness. They just do that with their eyes closed, imagining that they're taking their own suffering and their partner's into their heart, and then exhaling back kindness, compassion, and love. They do that for a couple of minutes. Their face brightens up, the heart opens, their chest opens. And from that place, they're back in this together. They see their shared humanity. Both of us are here suffering, and it transforms from how can we make it right for both of us? From that place, they were able to get playful.
Thank you for joining us for today's inspiring episode on building spiritually intelligent relationships, where fulfillment truly matters for both you and your family. Are you ready to keep growing? Visit fulfillmenttherapy.org to explore our life-changing courses or join one of our incredible group coaching programs designed for parents and families. Also, don't forget to sign up for our weekly emails for ongoing support and tips. We'll see you back here soon for part 2.